Hey there, everybody. Guess what? Today we have Freaky Friday. And on my Freaky Friday, I'm bringing you some good information. But the biggest news is I'm going to tell you how I grew up in a famous haunted house in Texas. That's right. So hang on for that. This is Vicky. Miss Jackie Russell is my channel, and Miss Jackie is my nickname, and I do prefer going by Miss Jackie. But I just want to let you know that in case you're wondering. And today we're going to talk about Freaky Friday again, and I've got a couple of things. One of them's about this MCT oil, and there are 2 or 3 food recalls that I'd like to share with you guys because it's a little freaky, when you're eating food and something's wrong with it. Yeah, bad wrong with it. So, I don't know if it's botulism or something else, but it's bad. It's bad. We don't want to be eating food like that, right? So, we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then, like I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to tell you about something freaky that I grew up with. It was more like after I turned 12. We grew up in a house in our hometown that was famous and was haunted. But anyways, we'll get to that in just a minute. I hope you'll join me. And if you like this kind of content, then hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell and share it out so other people can find out about these freaky things that go on around me. But anyways, today, besides all that, I want to talk to you about some food that is on recall. And I want to let you know, I've already heard it on channel, I guess ABC, I should say, the network. ABC has already put this out, and one of them is one that happened a few years back, and it is a tuna brand, and the FDA announced a canned tuna recall in 9 states over botulism. Woo, that is freaky. You don't want to be eating something and getting botulism. And the recall is in 9 states, as it mentioned, and it's the little tuna cans in the Genova yellowfin tuna in olive oil, and it's size 5-ounce 4-pack, and the UPC is 48000732265. Can codes is S84ND2L and 584ND3L. And it's got use dates by 1/21/28 and 1/24/28. What does that mean? Oh, it's best if used by those dates. Okay. But anyways, the stores are Meijer in Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin, and Giant Foods in Maryland and Virginia, and Safeway, Albertsons, Vons, and Pavilions in California. So if you have those canned foods, you need to take them back to your store. So that was the first one that I got notified about this week, which again, like I'm saying, it was freaky because, none of us want to be eating, food that's got botulism in it. And how does that happen? And they said this was kind of like a repeat thing that has happened before. And I have another one on chicken, and I don't know if this one's been announced yet on the major news, but this is a recall of chicken breast sold in 7 states due to listeria. So botulism and now listeria, that's really freaky. And I don't want any of my friends or family getting sick on stuff like this. So this is identified by fully cooked grilled chicken breast fillets with rib meat. The packaging is a 10-pound case containing 2 5-pound bags, and the lot code is 60104 P13822875J14, and establishment number is P like Peter -1382, and affected quantity is 13,720 pounds. And you could get fever, flu-like symptoms, headache, stiff neck, confusion, loss of balance. And where is it? Well, it doesn't want to tell us too much because guess what? It's food that's processed in restaurants. Nearly 14 pounds of ready-made chicken has been called to 7 states. This was announced on January 16th. The chicken made by Susanna's Kitchen of Norcross, Georgia, tested positive for listeria. So that's where it's come from, and I could have swore I read on here that it's mostly in restaurants. Okay, the product was shipped to distribution centers for providers such as restaurants and cafeterias in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Missouri, New Hampshire, North Carolina, and Ohio. So beware of chicken that you're eating in restaurants or cafeterias. That kind of concerns me for schools. Also, another freaky concern that it gives me is that a lot of these restaurants and our cafeterias, if they can't eat food by a certain time or whatever, they may donate it. And some of them may donate it, the full bags, the whole cartons, to a, what do you call it, when you go to like a church or something and you're getting food because you need food and you don't have enough money to buy any food. I forgot what they call those. But it's an outreach, to help people have food. So that concerns me. But anyway, those are the two that I have right now. And I wanted to be sure and let y'all know about those. And then the next thing I'm going to just tell you about is this Sports Research MCT oil. I got this at Amazon. And it's 3,000 milligrams per serving. And I got this to help my mitochondria speed up and push the cells out to burn fat, because it's mostly coconut oil, but it's MCT in mega dose. And this here is the ingredients. But basically, I'm going to tell you just to blow it off because this is freaky. I got this and Amazon sent it and it was no problem. But when I went to go get a capsule, look at that. They're stuck. They melted together. So they're in there like that, and you can't get them apart. See how that sticks? So what did I do? Well, I contacted Amazon and told them I wanted to send them back, or a replacement, or a refund. And they told me they don't do refunds or replacements or anything, I guess, on food type items. And so I was just stuck with this $25.95 purchase. And so I thought, okay, I tried twice. I sent in 2 reports and got the same result. I even did a chat, got the same result. So when they sent me, how did we do? Well, I got them. On my first review on shipping, how did it do for shipping, I said Amazon did perfectly and got it to me the next day. There was absolutely no problem with the delivery, but the product stinks and do not buy. And I wrote it real big across my review and a 1 star. And I said the company is selling an inferior product and it comes to your door all melded and melted together and stuck, and you can't get it out. And I even took pictures of this and turned it upside down up in the air with my camera angled so that I could show Amazon what it was. And it didn't change their mind. And it didn't change this company's mind. So then about, 3 or 4 days later, I got a, what did you think, from this company through Amazon. Tell us what you think about our product. Yay. Yeah, freakily, what I told them was that it was a 1 and that they were selling an inferior product. It was like buying something that they could just push out the door and dump on the consumer without any recourse. And that's how I felt. And I gave a very bad review. Now, I don't know if those reviews are up anymore. They're both a 1. And I give honest reviews on my Amazon and Walmart, wherever I leave one. And I want to tell you, within 24 hours, guess what? Without any other calls or anything, just that last number 1 star in my complaint, and the title is Do Not Buy Defective Product. I got a refund. That's right, that was freaky, but I got it and I took it. And you may say, well, what's freaky about that? Well, you don't expect to get pills like this, and then you definitely don't expect to be told there's nothing they're going to do about it, and then just all of a sudden, magically, they take care of it. I'm very thankful. So anyway, don't buy this brand. sports research. I wouldn't trust them again since that happened. Because if it happened to me, it's happening to a lot of people. It's not just me. All right, now, how did I end up living in a haunted house? Well, on North 4th Street in Wills Point, there is a famous house that was called the Bobbitt House in its day. And the Bobbitts owned it, and it was a hotel originally. And way back in 1929 or I don't know, 30s, in the early 30s, Miss Bobbitt, the mother, and I don't know her name, her daughter's name was Dovey. And Miss Bobbitt owned this hotel. And unfortunately, there was a fire and the hotel burnt to the ground. And over 16 people, I think, died in the fire. And 8 of them were servants. And, I guess the other 8 might have been people staying in there. The mother got out and other people got out. But many people died, and I think some animals, like cat or dog or something, might have died. So what did they do? Well, they rebuilt on the same spot in downtown Wills Point, and this time it was built more like to what Dovey wanted. So this time she might have been taken over it. I don't really know, but it was built, and it was still called the Bobbitt. It was not called the Bobbitt Hotel anymore. It was called the Bobbitt House. And the Bobbitt House was a famous restaurant that served people. And I do think sometimes they did like a bed and breakfast there. But anyways, guess what? It burned down again. And maybe that's when her mother owned it. Maybe Miss Dovey rebuilt it after the second burn. I don't know, but it was burnt down and came back, okay? And I don't know if there were any people killed in the second fire. But years went by, and Miss Dovey, she was famous with Duncan Hines. She had Liberace come in there. She had Elvis Presley. There's just a slew of movie stars that came to the Bobbitt House, and most of them came by to eat. That's right, because her food was home cooking and it was delicious. And Duncan Hines found out about her from, I think, her sister who lived in Dallas, and they, ran around in the circles of the famous people, and or she did, and she told Duncan about her sister's, Bobbitt House and her angel food cake. That's what she was really famous for, this angel food cake. And believe it or not, I think that might be how Duncan Hines came up with their angel food cake recipe. But you can't put that on me for sure. But anyways, Duncan Hines was very impressed, and he gave her high reviews, and she was in a lot of reviews for that angel food cake. And I may have this confused with her sister. Maybe her sister had the recipe for the angel food cake. I just know there's a lot of famous people involved, especially after Dovey had the Bobbitt House. And as she grew in her later years, my father would go and help her with, like, I don't know, repairs and things on the house. And he would go and visit her with my baby sister, which I would say Carrie was probably maybe 2 or 3 then. And, so she was very fond of him. And at this point, she was selling that house, and she was going to live in this house, in an addition in Wills Point, away from that house. And she had already purchased it and was already living in it, and had the Bobbitt House up for sale. And there was a person or a family that had a contract on it. And they were a family that had, the mother or the lady was pregnant and was going to be with your first child. Well, Miss Bobbitt wanted that house to be filled with children, and my daddy had 5 kids. So she was very interested in him when she told him he might be interested in buying it. And when he told her that, we went and looked at it, and the contract with the other people fell through. I'm sure it was on purpose. And it wasn't because they wanted it to fall through, but it fell through. And my dad and mom, they purchased the Bobbitt House. And that's how we ended up in that famous house. Well, I mean, we didn't know it was haunted, of course. And we lived there for a little while. Didn't really notice too much. But, we would hear creaky things and noises and footsteps or things we couldn't explain. And of course, as little kids, I was probably 12, so I was the oldest, and the youngest was 2 or 3, my little sister Carrie. And as little kids, we would explore that whole house because when Miss Bobbitt left, she left me one of her bedroom suites, and my room had a kitchen in it because she lived upstairs. And, like since she had the Bobbitt house down below, then she had upstairs, she had extra rooms, and one of the rooms had a kitchen in it, and that was my bedroom. And then my sister got the big luxury room that had like a sitting area room and a big, I don't know, bedroom area, like you'd consider a master bedroom. And then my brother I guess he had kind of like the next biggest room. And then my little brother had the smaller room. Well, there was 4 big rooms upstairs and a big hall. You remember in the old days when they would have those long 8-inch wide hallways so that you could have a breezeway, and we had a deck or they had a porch out front. You could open the door and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyways, we had all that. And over time, we started noticing things downstairs. We didn't notice too many things upstairs. But downstairs in my mom and dad's room, they had what you would consider a sitting room, or maybe nowadays you'd call it your office area or something. And then, of course, it had a master bedroom part off to the other side. But that was added on. That wasn't part of the original house. So the part that was the original house, it had like this little sitting room. Well, Miss Bobbitt left 2 green antique rockers in there, and I don't know, some type of armoire dresser. She left I think 2 of those big eating tables that they served for the Bobbitt house for when they had meals. And she left some other furniture. I think my brother got a bedroom suit. And there was various other furniture that she left. And I still have one piece of the furniture. And it was a mirror. It was a very decorated French provincial mirror with a marble top. And, you could set it up for your entryway. And I still have that. But anyways, in that room, as little kids, we would see the closet door open and hear movement. And then in one of the green rocking chairs, this thing would start rocking in the chair. And it would get up when it was done, and it would, I guess, walk back to the closet door and shut it. Now, the closet door was adjacent to the bathroom on the other side. But that happened numerous times. And we got to where we called the ghost George. We really didn't know. We just called him George. But I don't even know why or how we came up with that name. But we knew he was coming. We weren't scared of him. And I don't know if it's because we were little kids or what. But over time, my dad worked at nights. And there would be times we would be there by ourselves. And I guess people around town learned about that. And one in particular evening, and I don't remember what time it was, but there was someone outside our window from the alley, and they were looking in, and then I don't know why or how I was watching them without me being seen, but they started to open up the window, and all of a sudden they had this look like, and they ran off. Like down the alley, because I was fixing to call the police. I was in the kitchen and I could see him, and I was right by the telephone, and I was going to call the police. And he had this most frightened look on his face and ran down the alley. And I went and told my brother James, and we were all talking about it, and then we started laughing, and we said, I wonder if George showed himself to this guy and scared him off. And to this day, I wonder that. But this is where this is going to get real freaky, okay? We grew up there. I graduated high school living in that house, and we always seen these little freaky things. In the bathroom, always had downstairs, always had noises and things that you couldn't quite explain. And in my little sister's room, she had the one bedroom other than my parents down on the main floor. Her bedroom always had lots of noises coming out of the closet. And we never could like see anything, but we could hear stuff. And, it was just freaky and creepy. So, and I had a friend that rented that room for a little while, and she said that she was just freaked out by it and she moved out. And she was an older girl. I'd say she was like 18, and my mom rented the room to her. And Carrie was up with Lori in her big old, room. I told you it was a big old master suite. And anyways, but it didn't work out, and I think now I know why. But anyways, over time, we all grew up and we all went our separate ways. And I moved away to Missouri, and most of them all lived around here somewhere, but we all, kind of moved away. Well, back in 1998, 99, I moved back to Wills Point, and then my sisters were here, and then we started having some freaky things happen that was unexplainable. And each one of us, especially the girls, it really wasn't the boys, it was the girls, were having these freaky things happen. And I don't even know how to explain this to you guys, and without sounding really bizarre, but each one of us was having different kinds of things happening. And like my sister, she was like, she said she was levitating stuff, or she thought she was. And I don't know if she was or not, because I never did see any of that stuff. And my other sister, a lot of people was coming to her for information, and for her to tell them things. And I was having these freaky visions. And I mean, like, I would know things that was going to happen a few minutes prior to when it was going to happen. And I'll give you a couple examples. One time I was at the local, salon getting my nails done, and I heard an ambulance, and I said, "Oh my goodness, somebody's hurt out there." And we all ran to the front door, and there was nothing there. There was no ambulance, no nothing. But within minutes, there was an ambulance and there was somebody hurt. And they carried him off to the hospital. And they said, "How'd you know that?" And I said, "I don't know." And then, I don't know, another time, um, I heard another ambulance, and Laura was with me. And I said, "Oh my goodness, there's an ambulance coming. Like you're going to need to pull over and get out of the way." And Laura's looking around and she's like, "Mom, there's not no ambulance coming." And then just within a few minutes or seconds or however, I don't know how much time went by, but there comes this ambulance. So I was having those kind of situations. Well, it turned out that the lady that had bought the house, not the first family, not the second family, but the third family, and let me tell you, every family that ever bought that house ended up divorced. Even the Bobbitts. The mother got divorced, and then the the daughter was divorced. My parents ended up getting divorced in that house. There was a doctor that bought the house, and him and his wife, after several years, they got divorced. Then there was a local businessman that owned like the office store in town, and him and his wife had been married for years, but they bought that house, moved in there, and it wasn't too much longer they was divorced. And then the next person came in there, and they were divorced. Well, the latter lady that bought it was a single lady, so she didn't get divorced, but she tore the house apart. And I'm talking about on the inside, and before she got done doing all that, she wanted to talk to previous owners. So my sister Carrie went and talked to her, and she said, "I'm having a time with this house." She goes, "Things keep happening." And Carrie looked around. She had the floors tore up. She had it a total mess, and Carrie looked around and she goes, yeah. She goes, you're disturbing the, she didn't use ghost, I don't think, but she used a term. You're disturbing them. And, they don't like it. And so, and I'm probably not even making sense about all this, but I'm just trying to tell y'all what I can remember. Well, she asked Carrie if she knew anybody that could come and do like to get the spirits out of the house, the people that died probably in that house. And she didn't really know, but she had heard of someone, so she contacted that friend roundabout way. Somebody came over there and tried to do like an exorcism or whatever they do to get ghosts out of places. Well, all it did was just release those ghosts out and more active. They even got more active. And this lady that came to help her was so scared, they say she just went off running and screaming. And then that old lady, the older lady that had bought it, she was getting people coming up and knocking on her door telling her to quit disturbing the house and that she better watch out. She was getting warnings from I don't know who, people coming in and warning her of this. And we found out that there was a well in the house because, back in those days, they didn't have running water, so they had built a well in the house, in the not the center, but kind of close to the kitchen. And guess where that well was? It was underneath that closet that I was telling you about, my little sister's room. There's a well there. So now they think that's where the gateway, I guess you could say. You hear about gateways being able to come and go. So anyways, those things were kind of released. Well, I think, and I have no proof, but I think they knew we were back in town. I was in town after 20-something years. My sister was here. My other sister was here, Carrie, Lori, and Vicky. And I think that they were trying to mess with us because I started having problems at my house where we live right now. Seeing things, hearing things, things being moved. So, I'm talking about like they was messing with me. So, anyways, and that's freaky. And I did do like a sage cleaning and all that of this and the property. But there's other stories about that I could go into. But we're talking about the Bobbitt House today, the one that I grew up in. And anyways, that was really freaky. And so that all kind of disbanded itself. We come together, we prayed about it, and we pray for protection, and we pray for them to go away. Just to leave us alone, because in the name of Jesus, you can, have these things not affect you, and you definitely don't have to be scared of them. They're more scared of you if you got the power of Jesus in you, because he that is in you is greater than he that is in the world. And I really honestly think that's why we weren't scared as kids, because number one, they weren't mean to us and they didn't try to scare us. And number two, we were raised with trusting God, trust and obey. We sang that song all the time, and we recited the Lord's Prayer and Psalms 23 every day, just about, because our mother had us doing that. So we had that protection over us. But anyways, now I'm going to come to some more freaky stuff, okay? I'm going to say about 8 years ago, when I was getting a tan in a tanning bed at this place called Hot Topics on the same street where my house is. Now, people ask me, why did we never buy that house? Why, when you moved back, why didn't you buy the Bobbitt house? Because it was always for sale. And my answer was, I didn't want a divorce. And that's the honest God truth. And any of my friends that ever thought about buying the Bobbitt house, I told them don't do it. And they did heed me, because some of them had some weird dreams after going into the house and, thinking they was going to buy it. But anyway, that's probably another story too. But anyways, I was getting a tan, and this was on the same street as the North 4th Street in downtown Wills Point. It was in one of the old buildings, and a long time ago, probably back when the Bobbitt House was doing its thing, it was the bank, okay? Or next door to the bank. And I went and got got in the tanning bed, and I was just laying there minding my own business, taking a tan, and all of a sudden I felt something stroking my foot at the end of it. I mean, like a caressing type stroking of my foot. And at first, I kind of, did this with my foot down there, and I just thought it was just, nothing to worry about. And then it did it again, and it was just so, it was tender, but it was weird and freaky. And so I got freaked. I really did. I got freaked out. Boy, I jumped out of that tanning bed. I got myself all dressed, and I got out of that room as soon as I could. I never tanned in that room again. And then I went up to the front desk. I just point blank asked them, "Is this place haunted?" And she said, "Why?" And I told her what happened, and she said, "Oh, that must have been George." Yeah, George. Like I told y'all when we were little kids that George would come in and out of that room, and that's what we called him. That was when I was 12 years old. And 8 years ago, what am I, 65? I'd have been 56. We're talking about all those years later, this George thing's stroking my feet. I'm not kidding you guys. This is just crazy wild. And then that lady went on to tell me that they were haunted there too, and that they had children that would be seen and are running up and down. And I can't remember if it was a bank or the old funeral home. I can't remember what that building was actually used for, but apparently people had died in it too. And that was just freaky. And I would have to say it was like those things or ghosts or whatever they were, spirits, were following us, tagging us. But never in my life did I think I would ever like have another visit, I guess you could say, from George. And it really kind of freaked me out when she told me all the things that they had gone on in that place of business that they couldn't see but they could hear, or other people would say, make kind of odd comments. So whoever this is has been downtown for a while, and I really think it's probably the same spirits. And I don't know why they're not rested. I can only say that, in our house, we know that people died on those grounds, and the house was rebuilt twice on the same property. So I know that happened, and there probably could be things that are left there. But I don't dwell on it, and I certainly don't glorify it or nothing. I glorify God, and I have my faith in God and protection. And I haven't, had anything happen ever since, I told you that, things here, only because I think they were following us. I don't know. It was really weird. It was really freaky. And I don't have any other explanation for it other than that happened. And that was different things that happened to each of us. And I'm sure my sister would have, more to tell, and my other sister might have more to tell. But that's what I remember, and that's what I know happened to us. And it always related to the Bobbitt House. And like I said, the Bobbitt House was really famous. I don't know if it comes up on the searches anymore. I think it does. It's Bobbitt, I think, house was what it was called. And I used to have like a whole, like manifesto on it. But now when you read about it on the internet, it's not going to talk about it being haunted. And I'm sure the people that have the house right now, there is a family living in it that bought it from that lady that tore it all up. And they didn't do anything to this house. They bought it completely redone by an Australian millionaire that moved in the area. And he redid it, like when you buy a house and then you flip it, and then he flipped it. And it looks really nice. If I can find that picture, I'll run that across there somewhere. But as far as I know, that family is okay. I haven't heard anything in our town, and I don't even know where they came from. I don't think they're from here, and I don't even know if they would know who to talk to, or you know, who what can you say? You don't go around talking about stuff like that because most people aren't going to believe you. They're going to think you're crazy. But I told that lady, the older lady that had tore it up, because my sister and I, Lori and I, did go over there after she had kind of finished it up and she had it for sale, and we just went and looked to see what she had done to the house. And I mean, it looked nice, but we could also tell how she had disturbed the house. You know what I mean? Like by pulling up the floors, and the floors probably needed to be pulled up, and they probably needed to be redone. I'm not saying the things that she did, but she just told us that it was just like a money pit. And you hear about those things when you are messing with something and you're disturbing it, and it's just one thing after another happens. And that's kind of like what was going on with this older lady. And get this, she didn't live in that house after a while. She did at first, but she moved out and bought another house about 3 or 4 streets over, away from that house. So I thought that was odd too, that she had done that. So she probably seen more, heard more than what she ever mentioned to us about it. But to this day, that house still stands right next door to the post office. And I had told the postmaster a few years ago how the house was haunted and that it had a curse on it because everybody that ever lived in it had a divorce, including my family. And she said, that's ridiculous. And I said, well, it's not. I go, you just find out because you've lived here. You know who's been in that house. I can tell you the doctor and his wife's divorced. The Chris's got divorced. I said, there's just a slew of people that were married, but they were not married when they left that house and sold it. And so she looked into it, and the next time I was in the post office, she said, her name was Melody. She goes, hey, I wanted to tell you, I investigated that a little bit, and you're absolutely right. Every person that's ever bought that house and was married are all divorced. And I said, yeah, I know. But that was my Freaky Friday tale. And hey, guys, with this weather that's coming, you might want to sit back with the popcorn, maybe. I don't know. Coffee, Coke, tea, whatever pleases you. But if you were able to, sit back and relax with me, I should have mentioned that in the beginning, and hear my freaky house that I grew up in Wills Point, Texas. And the memories, I guess, of that. There's other memories, but those were the freaky memories that we had, and I just wanted to share it with you. I had mentioned this one time with Kim, with hanging out with Kim, and she goes, oh, you got to tell that story. And I thought, well, one of these days, maybe I will. And I have some other freaky stories that I can tell you guys, and hasn't been a boring life, I'll tell you that. But I'm going to end it right here. I just want to say I hope you're enjoying my Freaky Fridays and whatever news that I might come out with and our reports. And this was the Bobbitt House. And like I said, that it's not on the register as a haunted house, okay? So most people might not even know it's a haunted house unless they know us or other people that's actually lived in it and, had freaky things happen. But anyways, that was, a true story for me. And like I said, it was freaky the way it followed and gave us what we thought might be like some kind of supernatural powers, which we don't have. And I don't want them. I don't want anything from that side of life, so to speak. So, yeah, they're not welcomed. And, it was just freaky. What can I say? Interesting but freaky. So, anyways, let me know if you have any questions, if you've got like some kind of freaky tale like that, if you ever heard of anything like that. And I guess I'm going to wrap this up. So, as for today and this Freaky Friday report, that's all I have. And as usual, I wish you all a blessed and happy day. Bye bye.